Then, yeah, I lost my phone like over 2 months.
Yes.
So, surprisingly, I got a text from Gloria.
Yeah.
Customers have been looking for you over the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Then my mind was like, the daughter of a tycoon is looking for me. I was even moving on Loom Street.
Yes.
So that changed my mind and started respecting myself a bit. Like, somehow I'm important. If someone important
is looking for me.
That's opened my mind and start to know that I need to be serious, have a skill, have a business, and also work more with my fashion, because by then I was still an amateur.
Yeah.
So I never had money to go to buy books, and no designer could invite me. So I got to know basically all the knowledge through Aristotle, but I couldn't afford any book. I could go open and feed the mind. I move out, I make notes before I forget. You get?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you're alive, it's easy to forget that you will die, or even that death actually exists. Beyond rest, caskets and cemeteries encountered seasonally. You cannot feel the sting of death anymore. You believe such things are reserved for others, the unwanted stepchildren of gods who did not exist anyway. When you're young, it's easy to forget that you grow old, that you lose the smooth texture of skin or the milky white of eye, that you're beautiful. Black flocks of hair shall grow one day, and your heart will grow weary with lack of ambition. You forget that one day you lose the spring of step and the innocence of youth. You lose the liberty to dream dreams and the lifetime to chase them. You forget that you grow bold, bent and bitter. When you're healthy, well sane and strong, it's easy to forget the pain of illness, the physical pain and the mental pain, the anguish of immobility, the dread of impending death, and the insane lasting after life itself. When you're born in Kampala, it's easy to forget the deprivation of rural childhood. When you're bread and buttered bread and frozen milk, it's easy to forget the hard corn cob webs welcoming the toddler in Morocco to yet another day every day. When you're perpetually conflicted between beef and mutton for dinner, it's easy to forget the thousands of fellow citizens out there who've been constantly unsure of their next meal from the day they left the womb. If the toughest read in your life has been choosing between Buddha and Namagunga for your high school education, it's easy to forget that 70% of the nation's children do not have the chance of knowing the meaning of the boring word blackboard. When you're alive, it's easy to forget that you'll die. When you're safe, sound, fat and pampered in your gated and manicured suburban homes, it's easy to forget that the masses of Ugandans out there can only manage half the night's sleep, wooing to incessant battles with mosquitoes, bedbugs, and stomach grumbling from emptiness. When you've gained admission to Makerere, it's easy to forget that you were once mortal, that the blood in your veins isn't of blue hue, and that your arteries are not pipes of gold-plated steel. When you're young, it's easy to forget that you grow old, and surely you'll die. When you're young, when all you think of is girls and boys and toys, a good job, money to spend and life to live, it's easy to forget that your country needs you. That by sitting there and wishing for good times, by refusing to involve yourself in efforts to right the wrongs of society, you're effectively betraying your country. When you're young, it's easy to forget that by not speaking for justice and writing for justice and walking and marching for justice, you're effectively as guilty as the corrupt robbing public funds, as guilty as those parasitic politicians for killing pregnant mothers due to lack of medicines in hospitals, as guilty as those reactionaries for selling the soul of Uganda to force yonder. It's easy to forget.
Welcome back from that break. That is what we call poetry right there. That is Kagai Peter Ngobi's work at Nabisunsa Girls, one of the traditional schools in Kampala in Uganda, one of the strongest schools, girls' schools in the eastern part of Africa, right here in Kampala, right here in Uganda. And you can see what this gentleman is doing with the poetry clubs in Nabisonsa Secondary School, and we're going to see a little bit more about that. Peter, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
I want to encourage everyone, first of all, to send in their kisses and disses to you. Those who have to send kiss.
Bring.
Yes, but I want to take you straight, Peter. Welcome back to the program. Peter, our topic today is, I'm going to ask the team to put it up there for everyone out there, is looking at defining and distinguishing poetry, prose, and drama in Uganda and beyond borders. I will repeat this. Defining and distinguishing poetry, prose being style, and drama in Uganda and beyond borders. Now, always when we talk about this, you of course have a very elaborate, write-up there. If you look at your, the first work which you brought out was Romeo and Juliet in Kampala. We want to know what inspired that. Was that your first work? And while you throw in a little bit about those three things that we've talked about, defining, of course, and distinguishing the difference between the prose, the drama, and of course
the poetry
in behind. And so many times we don't know which one is which, and we want people to understand from the creative industry talk what this really is about. We're talking about defining that moment, given the COVID-19 situation, given the education system that have been completely, down for the last 2 years, and we're being told that suddenly there's a possibility that we're not going to open, come 2022 or thereabout. And COVID is throwing a lot of things there, but dive into it.
Well, so distinguishing prose poetry and drama.
Yes.
This is an academic question.
Yes.
So let me just be frank with it. So we have literature. Literature can easily simply be defined as the creative expressions of a given culture, of a given people. And it is normally done through writing, through singing, through speaking. Now, literature is that creative expression that focuses on the written word. As you hear the word itself, literature, literate, meaning to write. Now, we are going to restrict ourselves to three things. So we talked about prose, we talked about poetry, we talked about drama. Now, prose is that kind of creative expression that is more elaborate. It is more elaborate. So if you're reading a novel, if you're reading a short story, if you're reading a biography, that falls within if you're an essay, that is in a form of prose. Now poetry is more rhythmic. It is briefer, and in most cases we use a lot of descriptive and colorful language. So if you look at a novel and a poem, what a novel can say in 200 words, a poem can say in 1 page. Now, those are the differences between the poetry.
That's the difference between these. Yes.
Now, when it comes to drama, the way you hear the word, drama is language in action. Language in action. So drama is that kind of written literature where you capture characters talking. But from what they talk, for you the reader or the listener, you can infer what is taking place. So drama is always takes place when characters are either talking to themselves or they're talking to others. Now as Kagai, I have had the chance of practicing all the three. I have written some prose, I've written some poetry, and I've written some drama. Now, it is the drama that you wanted me to comment about, Romeo and Juliet in Kampala. So my friends and I wrote a play. We're a team of 6. Now we're a team of. We started out at 6, but now we are 5. There is a poet who is myself. There is a percussionist, a drummer. Now he's in Brazil, but he's Ugandan. there is a break dancer, Abraham's teacher. Yes. There is a big girl, and there is an actor called Biamukama. And we came together, people from different, even when we were doing art, people from different walks of life. Yes, that's the guy.
Yes.
Now imagine Abraham being Romeo, being part of the play. And this time, we've asked him, rather than fight, but to break dance. Yes. So we came together and we wrote a play called Romeo and Juliet in Kampala. We imagined Romeo and Juliet were living in Kampala, and the story was a Kampala story. So what happens? So we wrote it in 2019. We staged it here in Kampala, and then also staged it in Germany and we did it again this year at the Afri-Cologne Festival. Yeah. We basically Ugandanized Shakespeare. We Ugandanized the story. Yeah. Then I've also worked on other plays like Arrest the Poem, which we featured at the Baimba International Festival in 2018. We wrote another play called Tokubatota. Tokubatota was also featured at the Baimba International Festival in 2017. And then I wrote a one-man play called The Audience Must Say Amen. Yeah. That one was adapted from my poetry book, the first one that I published called The Headline That Morning. Yes. And it also featured at the Kampala International Festival, and also the Afri-Cologne. Somehow the Afri-Cologne Festival loves my works. Yes. To the writers out there, for me, what I would want to advise you is that when you are a writer, in as much as it is important to know your voice and to know your niche, it's also more important to also be flexible. Now, for me as Kagai, my poems have been adapted into drama. You know, where even when you are writing a poem, you don't remain rigid and say, for me, I only wrote my poems. They are supposed to be published. They cannot be performed. I think as an artist, you must allow your works to grow beyond you. Team up with visual artists and see what pictures they can draw out of your poems. Team up with fashionistas, see what kind of costumes they can develop. With songwriters, see what kind of songs they can develop. Because if you don't allow your literature to grow, then it cannot feed you. And for the times that we are living in like these, for these COVID times we are living in, it's very important that as artists we allow our works to grow into all the genres that they can grow into. So if you're a poet out there and you write your poems and you keep them in your books and then, put the book under the pillow, let me tell you, that is not a place where your poems should be. Your poems should be outside there with musicians. They should be with the graphic artists, They should be with fashion designers. They should be with theater directors, so that you can allow them to become products that are beyond just, poems on a page. Yeah.
Wow. On that note, Peter Kagai, we want you to just give us an understanding of the three things that you have talked about in a poem.
In a poem.
Yes.
Right now.
Yes. On the spontaneous, if you're looking at, if I want to see the good example of prose, of a definition defining and distinguishing between the poem, the prose, and the drama.
Yes.
Yes. I know you match three of them in one go.
Yeah.
We're going to put you in a spotlight just so that somebody out there can actually understand exactly, practically what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Here is Peter.
Someone ran very fast until someone is in trouble. Someone ran very fast until someone is in trouble. Someone ran very fast until someone is in trouble. But before you go, turn your ear towards the night sky and hear the sound of the raging storm. Hear the vociferous fury. The Sandra Brigade is seething as it comes together to march in a single force. Someone ran very fast and announced the trouble. Someone run very fast and tell someone is in trouble. Sana fuziridde kalala nkoma omusana gwakira ku bikukuju enkoko za KFC twazirisiza nkuku nyina makovu. The rumor is ripe for harvest and the village has gathered to know. Someone ran very fast and announced the trouble.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Peter. Peter, I mean, we're learning quite a bit from you on the creative industry talk. I want to take you straight to my next question. What is your work schedule like when you're actually writing these plays? Because there's another thing. What frame of mind must you be in, or must I be in when I'm writing? You've been writing for some time. You've been across the borders, across Europe, across Americas. What has been the experiences you picked from there, and what is your schedule like when you're writing? What kind of frame of mind should one be in, or are you always in when you're writing to put this beautiful work out there?
I think now I can recognize it. I can say there are two frames of mind that I'm always in. One, there is when I am writing work to be performed. And I am deliberate about, I envision the audience that I'm going to be with. Perhaps I even already have the contract and I'm told, you write this play or write this poem, it's supposed to be for this purpose. And I put myself to that target. And so that influences the decisions you make. For example, the books I'm going to buy to read. Because that is where, for me, the resources go in research. Who should I consult about this particular topic that I'm supposed to be writing about or performing about? So there is that frame of mind. But then there's also the frame of mind of the leisure writer who is with friends and then someone makes a joke and then it tickles your mind. And so where you are writing for yourself, you're not really writing to deliver. You're just writing a beautiful kind of work. So for me, there are two types of frames of mind. So for the very first one, I have a process. And for me, the process is, I take it like an assignment. So I'm going to write about a topic, I write the topic down. I ask myself about in what languages do I want it to be, I take note of that. What other ideas do I want to explore? What are the themes I want to explore in this particular topic? I write them down. Who has written about them? I go and buy those books. It could be an academic book, it could be a drama book, it could be a novel, it could be a poetry book. So then I start reading about that topic. Then in the process of reading about it, I am listening to what people are saying. I'm listening to the radio, I'm watching TV, I'm on social media. Try to tap into the vibe of what are the people saying or thinking about this. Then, and that could sometimes take a period of 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Then after 2 weeks of reading and researching and listening to people, then I start writing the poem. There is that deliberate process. Yeah. Then for the second stage where I'm writing for myself and I'm really writing about what inspires me, that I can do anytime, any day. In fact, sometimes I task myself to say, you know what, yes, I want to write 100 poems this month. And it doesn't matter whether they're going to be the best poems or not. For me, what I want is my deliverables at the end of the month. Yeah. At the end of 30 days, I must have written 3 poems every day. So you write a poem and I say, I'm going to write a poem when I wake up. I'm going to write a poem after I've had my lunch. I'm going to write a poem before I sleep. And I'm going to just be writing about the things that are happening in my day. So you sort of document your life, or you make a diary of your life through poems. Yeah. And these are things you're not going to share with anyone, things that you may not even like. So, but what I recognize most importantly is that the moment I decided to become a writer, I said this is my 9 to 5. The same way a lawyer wakes up, an engineer wakes up, they leave work, they go to one office, they have a boss they account to, they have deliverables at the end of the month. I, as a writer, even when I'm my own boss, I have to give myself deliverables.
Which is disciplined.
That discipline is key. I know so many people who decided to become writers because they are lazy. they didn't want to go and do other things, and they thought they could just get away with it. So they come into this world of creative writing, and they slack. You know, guys who write one book in 6 years, you know, they write 3 poems and they recite 3 poems for 5 years. And you're wondering, where is your effort going? And you're still wondering why creatives are broke. You know, we need to put ourselves to that question and ask ourselves, what are we doing to make sure that we produce more and more and more and more and more and more and more? Because it is in producing this a lot, that we can get the best out of our generation. Wow. If you know, even when we say these are, you see, even when we say these are our talents, yeah, it should not be an excuse for us to avoid the hard work. Yeah. You know, we keep saying that, you know, writing is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You see, in fact, we write more. We find ourselves writing more when we are less inspired than when we are inspired. Right. If you're going to wait for inspiration to hit you to write, you're not a writer. You are a waiter. Writers write. Like lawyers, and engineers, engine things, doctors. We writers write. Whether you like it or not, whether you're unwell or not, whether you're broke or not, it's what you do. So the most important thing is to come up with a routine that's going to make sure that you keep producing. You keep, the Irish people say, here in Uganda we say you are as broke as a poet. Yes. The Irish say you are, in Uganda we say you're broke you're as poor as a church mouse. As church mouse, yes. The Irish say you're as poor as a poet. So, unless we want to keep in that vicious cycle of poverty, of writers or artists always complaining to some government to Yambe, if we want to break that cycle, we have to also break our cycle of indolence. Yes. We have to be prolific. We have to come up with routines that push us to keep producing more and more and more and more, because that's what our economy needs. Wow.
Peter, hold it right there. We're going to go for a break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okela, talking to Peter Kagai, who is a poet, and he is a writer, a lawyer. I think I love what he's saying, that if you're a writer, if you continue to sit and don't write and wait for inspirations to write, you are a waiter. That's the line for the day today. Stay right there. I'll be right back after this break. I want to know from you, and of course somebody who's watching this show either from here, or a child watching in Myanmar, or wherever they're watching, or in Congo where we're watched very much, would want to know, if I don't have the money and I have the passion and I have the zeal and I have the drive, but money is also needed to start it, how do I start? Where do I go? At least for you, your father gave you 300,000 to go and do a course. We don't know whether you spent the whole school fees or you only spent 1 month, took part of the school fees. What happened? How did you start, your fashion? Did you get money from somewhere? How should one start if I want to start? And I was like Kasozi.
I think we should try to be close to people who love what we do, basically. Yeah. Because even me, I managed to skip from that low level to another level because I had networks. Yes. Just me and Mia meeting Gloria Wavamuno changed my mind. Okay. Because I used to be Muyayona Street. So someone introduced me to Gloria Wavamuno, that I'm good, me I didn't know. Then, I lost my phone like over 2 months. Yes. So surprisingly, I got a text from Gloria. Yeah. Customers have been looking for you over the last 3 months. Yeah. Then my mind was like, the daughter of a tycoon is looking for me. I was even moving on Loom Street. Yes. So that changed my mind and started respecting myself a bit. Like, somehow I'm important. If someone important
is looking for me,
that's opened my mind and start to know that I need to be serious, have a skill, have a business, and also work more with my fashion, because by then I was still an amateur.
Yeah.
So I never had money to go to buy books, and no designer could invite me, So I got to know basically all the knowledge through Aristotle, but I couldn't afford any book. I could go open and feed the mind. I move out, I make notes before I forget.
Yes.
Yeah.
We sit in the darkest corner of my vast mind. Rhymes, metaphors, and I. A friendship for 15 years and a million demons we share. Our feet shackled together. Today is just another day in prison. Another failed attempt to escape this compulsion. Compelling my resistance to this attraction of paper and pen. The urge to pick up this ink and stain this white is overwhelming. An agonizing ecstasy. My mind brimming and bursting at the seams with words and sentences. Drowning me, choking me with desire to write. So dark, so painful, so sweet, allowing me no peace until these words are allowed to flow from the gooey matter of my brain. Through my veins, out of my fingers, into this pen, through the ink with which I jot this down. In this moment, I realize I've become a prisoner of my talent. Yes, I say talent not with vanity. I say talent because in days such as this, it ceases to be a privilege. It turns into a jail cell I've tried to break from, but each time I attempt an escape, I fall right back harder. Now I realize this was never my decision to make or to change. I am part of a separate entity of spirits who live by the pen. We teach, we correct, we rearrange, we give thoughts, opinions, and ideas wings with which to fly. And so, at a time like this, when these emotions are running high and screaming for release, and my entire being feels like was created for this, I know that this is not a gift. This is an obligation.
Welcome back from that break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okela, talking to Mr. Peter Kagai, who is a poet, a writer, a theater writer, and a drama writer. That's the man in the studio today on Creative Industry Talk. Peter, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
I want to just remind everyone out there that we're live on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Go there, share it far and wide. And I want to take a moment, Peter, to just read a couple of questions coming in from people in the diaspora here. I'll start with one person in Germany. Eddie Okela, thank you very much for bringing my OB to the show. That guy, I was with him in school, and the story he's talked about is true. He's always been a bookwormer. Not little wonder he's ended up as a writer.
OB, yes, what's up? Good to hear from you.
Yes, and another one here says, I got another lady here called Susan, all the way in the US. I stayed up the moment I watched, and I read that Peter was coming onto the program. Thank you very much. Busoga, oh yeah!
Oh yeah!
And of course, I want to read a 2 or 3 more questions. There's somebody in London says, Eddie Okela, thank you very much for bringing Mr. Peter Kagai on the show. I'm a writer, and I wish we could amplify what Peter just said before we went for a break. We writers are always lazy. Those who say they are writers and cannot write constantly, or cannot even write 3 or 4 pages daily, are not writers. A writer worth their salt must always write at least 3 poems a day, and if you are writing a book, you must not go more than 2 years without writing a book. In a year, you should have written at least 2 books, even if you have not published. Wow.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
we got some writers out there who are coming. This one is coming from the British Council in Kampala. My name is Susan. I work with British Council in Kampala. Thank you very much. I know that guy. He's a great, talented guy. We've worked with him before. Shout out to Peter Ngobi. That the words, man, if you're not a writer, if you're waiting for inspiration, you're a waiter. I don't want to be a waiter anymore. Well, Peter, I guess we got some love coming out from people there. You know, share your kisses and this is coming to us. We want to hear it. I've got a very strange Ugandan sending a message from Denmark, one of the universities there. I live and work in Denmark. And of course, I'm a Ugandan, but thank you very much, Peter, for coming to the show today. I love what you're saying. I think if we continue to amplify our voice to say, instead of waiting for government to yambe, creatives should always hold their power back. That's what Peter is saying. A creative mind is a mind that is bigger than a politician. Politicians are not creative. They use the creatives to move forward. What Peter is saying is true. So yet we should be telling them what to do. In our writing, you can write a poem, you can write a story to address your member of parliament or your LC or whoever you want, or the leader in your society, and they will listen to you because people will always relate to what you are saying, which they usually don't pay attention to. Thank you very much, Creative Industry Talk, for bringing such great, interesting minds to the show. Peter, over to you. I think you can see that a lot of people were reaching out, are talking about the same thing, making this possible and allowing this opportunity to come to people. I want to take you to your next question as we hasten to the close of the show. Peter, what would you say is your interesting writing quirk?
What quirk?
Yes.
Oh, what do you mean quirk? If you don't mind me asking.
The word quirk is Q-U-I-R-K.
Ah.
Yes, the one that you poets like to use the most.
Quirk.
Yes. What is your most interesting, you know, what I would say, the most interesting writing time of the day?
I'll break it down that way, yes. Okay, I write anytime.
Okay.
The point is, when do I edit?
That's where you've got the quirk,
yes. My quirk is at 3 a.m.
Okay.
I believe in the night. I believe in the quietness. When it all feels like the world is fast asleep, and you know you attend. I mean, when silence speaks to you. Yeah. But for me, the effort in writing, actually, the great work in writing is not in the writing itself. It is in the polishing of the writing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can even write a poem right now, off air. I can think of lines, but now the whole idea of now, you know, interrogating the thoughts, you know, developing the patterns you want it to have. You know, thinking of, you know, the listening audience, all those. 3 a.m.
Wow. And my next question is, how do books get published? This is a question that came in from somebody. A viewer wrote and say, can you ask him how do books of poets get published?
Let me just break down. Okay, two ways. There is self-publishing, and then there is traditional publishing. Self-publishing is where the writer wants to do it themselves. You want to be in control of the production process from the word get-go up to the end point. So from the word get-go, I mean from preparing the manuscript to printing the book at the end of it all. So, but the processes are simple. So you develop a manuscript. Now, according to Makerere University, and I'm giving a standard that at least is that can be publicly interrogated. According to Makerere University, your manuscript should have about 30 poems. At least 30 poems. Then after that, you take the work to an editor. And then that editor is the person who helps you to polish it up to make sure that it is legible, and it is worthy being consumed by readers.
Yes.
Then after that, the book is the manuscript is forwarded to the designers, the layout designers and cover and designers and illustrators if you wanted to have some pictures. Then you have to go to the Uganda Society Library to get the international standard book number. It is only 30,000 shillings. It is that barcode that each book should have, so that it can be internationally sold in all public places and be catalogued in all libraries. Then after that, the book goes to printing. You have to find the appropriate printers for you. And of course, there are the proofreaders that you also have to hire. Then after the book has been printed, now the book has to be sold to the market. So now thinking about distributing the book and making and giving it visibility. And that's it. Now that is a process that you can do as an individual. You can hire people to give you those services. You can even have your own logo that you'd want to attach to your books. There is that. The second process is where you find a publisher who does this work on a daily, and what you do is you sell them your manuscript, or you come up with a legal arrangement where you become co-owners of the copyright in that work.
Wow. Peter, there's a book up there called The God Prayers.
Yes.
Can you take us through The God Prayers and actually give us one of the poem in that book?
So The God Prayers is a poetry collection written by Ita Patience Mbeki. Mbeki she's now a PhD student at Makerere Institute of Social Research. But by the time we published it, she was a teacher at King's College, Budo. So what we were doing then was promoting literature among young people by encouraging their teachers to also write.
Wow.
Because the idea was, if the students see their teachers publishing, then they would also want to they'll be more confident to also think of taking on publishing. Unfortunately, I don't have all the poems in that book offhand, but I can tell you about a poem there that I like. There is a poem in there that I like that is called of absentee wives and mothering housemaids, where she is an author. She is a woman who is talking about, why I like this poem, she's talking about how the modern day woman today has abandoned her domestic responsibilities to the house help. You know? And so and you see how house helps become wives and mothers in their homes, where they're replacing the role of actually the wife, because the wife has also become a man. So I really liked that poem in that book.
And in the next book, which you have out there, I mean, if you just put that book up quickly, Ungodly Hour. What do you mean by Ungodly Hour? And what is this? This is a Kitara Nation Poetry Series 4.
Now, Ungodly Hour, this is a collection of poems by students from Mount St. Mary's College, Namagunga. Like I said, this project that we're running of publishing these books was about promoting the culture of publishing. There is literature taught in schools, but the culture of publishing is not there. So for us, we wanted to make books cool. We wanted to make publishing cool. So this is a book that we published from Mount St. Mary's College, Namagunga, and Ungodly Hour is one of the poems in there. And the poem itself, as you can see the cover, it is an hourglass, and there seems to be a lost soul that is drowning. And in that poem, these teenagers are talking about the things that they do at home at night when their parents are asleep. You know, so the book talks about the drugs that they take, you know, the nightlife that they have that their parents do not know, and it's
because they are soul searching.
Yes, because they are soul searching. It's talking about this darkness that they grow up with, that their parents don't ever get to see, because when their parents see them, they are seeing them going to church and they think these are holy people. Yet ultimately they have these demons that they are fighting, and they come out at night. They come out at that ungodly hours.
Wow. Let's talk about the poetry
Bangalore.
Now,
these are students of Seta High School, Mukono. And again, from the same idea, promote the culture of publishing among young people, give them the confidence to know that your words are valuable,
Yeah.
that they are worthy of being published in a book and read and taught and loved by others. So Poetry Bangalore was that project that we did at Seta High. And for them now, what we found interesting about these poems is now, Poetry Bangalore is this is a mixed school.
Yeah.
So the poems that we have in here
Yeah.
talk about the artificial relationships that students develop in mixed schools,
Yeah.
where the school tells you you should not mix with boys. It's a mixed school, but boys sit the other side, girls sit this side.
We went through it in a Seventh-day Adventist school. Very strict. No, there's always a line drawn in between here, boys.
Yes.
You cross, you get enough stroke. Continue.
Yes, I'm telling you.
Yes,
and this
yeah.
book actually interrogates that culture.
Okay.
So there are these poems that talk about how students live in plastic atmospheres where they are always competing with each other, comparing each other's flaws, and not willing to help each other grow. And yet they're living in an environment that is not allowing them to express themselves
That's the
honestly.
Poetry Bangalore.
That's the Poetry Bangalore.
Wow. Well, if you're joining us, this is a Creative Industry Talk. We're talking to Mr. Peter Kagai Ngobi, who is a poet, a theater poet, a drummer, a lawyer, and is the man who is the publisher's world. He is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the Kitara Nation, right? And you can see the work of Kitara Nation right out there, showing far and wide. Peter, I want to ask a question coming from the viewer up here that says, thank you very much, Peter, for that answer on the publishing. That's really good. I wish we could have people talk more about this for young writers like some of us. I didn't even know that you have to go through this. It looks so very elaborate, but thank you. My question goes to Peter. Where do you get your information or ideas for your books, Peter?
Where do
the viewer is asking, where do you get your, where do you get your information or ideas for? I guess she's saying, how do you develop your ideas? So I know we talked about it, but you could throw more light on it again.
No, everything comes from research.
Yeah.
Research and reading.
Yeah.
And probably this is what they mean. The process of, when I write a poem, I'm not thinking about writing. Okay, the process of compiling a book is not the same process of compiling a poem.
Yes.
When I'm compiling a book, I am getting a collective of my thoughts I have gathered over time.
Yeah.
And I want you to know me through my poems I have written.
Yes.
So that means that first thing that I have to consider is what are my interests?
Yes.
What are the things that speak to me when I'm writing?
Yeah.
Because when you want people to know you, you want them to know you about the things that are personal to you.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing you consider. Second thing you consider is who is going to read? In what language do they speak? In what language do you write? Yeah. So I am a Musoga, but right now I mostly write in English language. Yeah. So when I'm putting my books together, I know that I am targeting English language readers. Where do I find them? How do I find them? How do I market to them? Yeah. So you think about, for me, most importantly, a book, even a poetry book, it is a storybook. Any book you put together, why they call that book a page turner is because whatever you put on that page is going to encourage that person to open the other page, to go deeper and deeper. So you have to be careful on what you put on the first page, the second page, the third, the fourth, because it must be connected from the first cover to the next cover.
Eddie, thank you very much. Just before you end the show, can you please ask Peter, when did he first publish his first book and how old were you?
No, I first published when I was, I first published when I was 29. Yeah. My first book, the headline that morning.
Yes.
It was the first book myself published. But before that, my friends in the Lantern Meet had published. I'm a late
Daniel
Nuamanya.
Yes, Daniel Mutembesa.
Yes, they are. Yes, wonderful. Yes. That generation.
Yes. I have been around that circle.
Yes, surprised. I'm surprised. So our first book was in 2012.
Yeah.
And by that time, I was already out of campus. Yes. It was called Broken Voices of the Revolution.
Yes.
Now, the first book I worked on with my own hands was in 2013. It was for my students at Nabisunsa Girls School. They were in S4, and we published for them a book.
Okay. And then I have a last question here, which is coming and saying, what do you like to do when you are not writing, Peter?
When I'm not writing,
Yes.
what do I like to do?
Yes.
What do I like to do? Anyway,
We know you're already not practicing law when you're not writing.
No,
Yes,
I
yes.
am. When I'm not writing, I am reading. If I'm not reading, I am watching. I am blessed to be a publisher. So either I'm reading other people's works, or I am scouting for talent. So I'm going through social media looking for writers to publish. My work is, honestly speaking, I am a writer. I do most 99% of my life. I'm either writing or reading.
Yes, and as we hasten into the close, before we take the next steps of question about being on stage and performing on stage, Peter, what does one, or rather, what was one of the most surprising thing that you learned in creating your books, or creating books for others, or writing books for others? What's the surprising thing that you can talk about as a publisher, as a writer, as a poet? Yes,
those ones are many.
Remember we're talking about defining and distinguishing
I think
the poet, the prose, and the drama in it.
I think there are quite a number of surprising things.
Yes.
One is, don't ever expect your friends to support you.
Yes.
I think the biggest mistake you can ever make as a writer is to listen to people tell you, hey, you publish, we shall buy. Me, I'll buy 100 books.
Yes.
Me, I'll buy 10.
Yes.
And then you bring the book, and then that's when they remember, I have bills to pay. I think for me, the biggest lesson I have learned in publishing is ultimately, if you want to make this a career, and you want it to be a success, avoid marketing to friends and family.
Okay.
Because you first and foremost will avoid disappointment, and that disappointment that brings disillusionment.
Yes.
So when you're target strangers. We see how you go to a show and you don't expect to see only family and friends.
Yeah.
The people that turn up are the people that matter.
Yeah.
So for me, because all over time I've been producing books and wanting my friends, but your friends are your friends not because your friends like you because of you, not because you are a writer. So when you try to force your passion on them, it might even distance them. I have siblings who have never read my books. And we meet every day, but reading is not their thing. So if I become emotional and I'm like, yo, Enoch, you're my kid, bro, you're not even buying my book, then I'm actually killing off a market and giving off a wrong vibe. But if I target the reader, who is a stranger, but that person who loves reading, then that person is always even going to help me grow my business, because they're going to market me to other readers. So I learned that very fast. Avoid the obvious. Avoid thinking that your friends will support you, your family will support. They love you as you, not because of you. In fact, they don't even understand your art things. So look for the people that art. And for me, by the way, this is very important, because most of us get frustrated when we don't see our friends supporting our hustle. It is not that they don't want to support us. These things are not for them. They also have their own passions. So I learned that. Secondly,
third, actually.
Money. I want to talk about money.
Yes, third is the money, yes.
Whether you like it or not, you will not escape the question of resources. And you must have answers.
And you can't produce all these things without resources.
You must have, unless you're going to wait for manna and quail to drop from heaven, but you must provide the answer to that. No one else is going to. Don't think that there is someone with a basket of money waiting to just dish it to you. So you have to lobby. You have to know who to talk to in the industry. You have to know why it's important to start companies, why it's important to have a tax identification number, why it is important for you to know where to get the Uganda registration services, the Euro holograms. You need to know the business. You need to know the industry, so that way you can know who to go to when you need that particular kind of help. Without that, you'll keep on writing in the dark, and that's why your writing will stay.
Talking of that, Peter, we are coming to that part of the show that is really very interesting, and I love what you have said, that the three things I picked from you. Number one, you must love what you're doing. Number two, you must not force your friends to love what you're doing. Target those who you know are going to buy. Know your readers.
Yes.
And if you know that these are the readers, these readers, when they pick, they will pick and give it to another reader, and they will recommend, and that will be number three. You talk about money being key. You are not going to write these things for no money, and if you don't have the money, you cannot produce this. And if it is not sellable, then your friends won't buy it. However good you are, because Sylvester told us here, look into your phone numbers. We had Sylvester Kabombo here last week, and he talks about if you look into your phone book and you don't find 50 people who can buy your ticket to come to the concert, then you are expecting the festival people to bring you in or the promoter to bring you in, yet you yourself can't have 100 people. Then you need to go and delete your phone book or stopped. If not, go back and start all over again and make sure you create that from there. That's a big lesson we're picking from there. It's all about resources, because the artists have struggled and have failed. Peter, as we close the show, let's talk about your first time on stage in Kampala. You have been working with Bayimba and doing some stuff with Bayimba and training with Bayimba. You know, we talk about the schools. But let's talk about what opportunity did Bayimba actually present to you. And when we talk about Bayimba as the foundation, and you said the first time you performed there, what was the experience like? Take us through, and what have you been doing to try and leave your legacy in that space?
Yo, Bayimba changed my life. Literally, it changed my life. And Bayimba, I'd always known about Bayimba for a while, and Bayimba had known about me as well. I was part of a poetry group called the Lantern Meet of Poets, and so between 2010 and 2014, Bayimba used to feature us at the various festivals.